are talking about the amusingly named 6 Hot Chicks in a Warehouse. Yes, is this a sexy Sheila Smackdown? Let's discuss. This one is directed by Simon P. Edwards, who has really directed a lot of shorts prior to this. It's really just his first attempt at directing a full-length feature. So what's the story here? Well, we have 6 models, 6 female models, as they are invited to attend what they think is a photo shoot in this kind of large warehouse set up by this kind of creepy photographer who seems to be a little bit, you know, socially awkward, shall we say. And whilst they're there, things seem to be going according to plan. And we see that there's this kind of new drug that is out, kind of like a steroid really, that basically increases your strength and kind of makes you aggressive and potentially go nuts. And this guy's been taking it. So he kind of cracks ultimately and decides he's going to get revenge on these women because they kind of don't pay him enough attention. Initially locks them in cages and then sets them loose on each other in kind of death matches whilst he's kind of photographing them, whilst pumping them full of this drug to kind of make them more aggressive, etc. And that's your basic premise of the movie here. So let's talk about 6 Hot Chicks in a Warehouse. When I posted the trailer for this one, someone said they've never seen a more literal title, and that is probably true. So what works first of all? Well, you know, they are hot chicks, there's no denying that. It does what it says on the tin. We have a lovely cast of very attractive ladies, British film, and we have, you know, they're quite kind of like different. We've got a gothy one, we've got the kind of quick baby spice one, etc. And we have our kind of main one who is kind of the nice girl, I suppose, to a certain degree. The actual fight scenes, I've got to say, are a little bit fun, and they're not kind of like, they don't go too much in regards to, like, they don't go MMA all of a sudden. They kind of properly, well, somewhat catfight, you know. They're not like suddenly kind of martial arts masters, although one of them we show it does have some kind of like martial arts skills at least. But for the majority of the fights, they're kind of a bit more brawls, like female brawls. So I appreciate the fact that you know, that they suddenly all aren't kung fu experts, for example. We're not seeing kind of lots of wire fu. This is more of a scrap, and we've seen plenty of those when you go to a nightclub on a Friday night and you have a couple of girls pulling at each other's hair, etc. So I kind of appreciated that. But there's an attempt here at some kind of humour, almost like a kind of like action comedy to a certain degree. Some of which I think is funny, especially the kind of the advert for this kind of like the steroid thing. I think is the highlight of the comedy at least. So there are some kind of funny moments, but some of them do fall flat. We'll come on to the negatives. Yeah, so there you go. So, and one thing which I kind of liked as well, I was expecting, I know who's going to make it out at the end, but it doesn't quite go that way exactly. You know, there's a bit of a surprise in regards to who maybe walks out. But what doesn't work? This movie takes an absolute age to get going. We don't really get our girls in any sense of danger of being kidnapped until 45 minutes into the film. So for the first 45 minutes of the film, we are basically treated to, you know, these girls kind of being bitchy, this guy being way too klutzy to be any type of realistic, and lots of photo shoots. I mean, great if you like watching kind of like almost legitimate photo shoots, and the first 45 minutes are going to be right up your alley. But this movie takes far too long to get going to the actual plot point. You know, it should have taken maybe 20 minutes, I think, until we so we get a bit of, there's enough time for some characterization, but you kind of want to stop that danger and that kind of the you know, the feeling of dread and what's going on here. I also think the movie thinks a little small. I mean, I didn't really see what the end game of this, what this guy was thinking. I mean, it's clearly something he's thought of. So, you know, we have this drug that kind of makes you have like a fit of rage, but this is purely premedicated. So it's not something he's just done off a whim. He's kind of got all these electrified fences all set up and all of this, and I just think, well, what's your end game here? I mean, where do you want this to kind of end up? I mean, it just seems like that hasn't really been thought of. I also thought it would have been better to maybe have a little bit more sort of going on. Maybe he's trying to kind of like make money by sort of selling these kind of like these fights online or something like that, but that's not really in it. I just thought it could have been, the stakes could have been raised a little bit more, to be honest with you. The actual acting, I've got to say, is a little bit mixed. Our antagonist, this guy, he's played to be like way too kind of like quirky and kind of like weird. He's just a little bit over the top. I mean, any woman who goes invited to a warehouse would be out of there. You know, he's just maybe a little bit too kind of like kooky and weird. And there's some, I think the humour doesn't always work. I mean, there's some attempts here to have some funny moments. It's like a bit where it's just straight out of Austin Powers, where you kind of see this guy's kind of silhouette and he's doing something behind this screen, and it obviously looks like something else. It's like, have you been watching Austin Powers? I mean, it's just like, yeah, we've seen this done better, and it just seems out of place. And I have to say, although I appreciate a more realistic fights between these girls, I don't know, it wasn't particularly well choreographed, if we're being honest. I mean, there's not a lot of kind of real impact there, and there should have been far more hair pulling. Whenever I've seen girls fight, there's a lot of hair pulling, and we don't see really any of that. So, you know, despite the fact that I do think there is, you know, they don't use kind of kung fu and stuff, it could have been more done with it. So yeah, I mean, it's kind of, there are a couple of like sort of, it tried to have a couple of relatively gruesome deaths, but there's one, for example, where one gets like a pole pushed through her head, but there's no resistance here. It looks like it's just going through like butter with the amount of kind of resistance it goes through. So I don't know, it's just a little bit kind of like a bit crap to a certain degree. There are some fun elements here, but I don't think it's a particularly interesting film. It takes way too long to get going, and when we actually do get to our kind of actual plot point, there's not really much there. The fights aren't particularly interesting, and there's no real kind of, you don't really just think there's much story there when that actually happens. It's more or less these girls are trapped in a cage, you know, there's no sense of kind of fear for their lives exactly. You don't kind of get the feeling that they're kind of like really scared or anything like that. And again, that kind of goes down to the acting. So it's a little bit of a miss, to be honest. There are some fun elements, and as I said, lots of attractive ladies. You know, if you really want to see chicks fighting, then go check it out. Let me know what you think. Leave me a comment, and I shall look forward to you next time. Bye for now.